Hello, everybody! Welcome back to the Salt Lake City Snowhawks expansion franchise. We're still rocking here on Madden 25, and I know it's been about a year since I've posted on the YouTube channel, but I'm very happy to be back with you here today and getting back into this Snowhawks expansion franchise. I've been wanting to get back into it for a while now, but of course, with life, things do get in the way. But we're back here, and we're going to get back into it and hopefully build this team up from what was a very disappointing 4-13 season. So we'll just get a little reintroduction into the roster here today. Mark Andrews, 92 overall, but a lot of our guys, as you look at our morale, everyone has dropped substantially, at least, 10 points or so. We have down here, YaYa Diaby was our big free agent acquisition of last season. Really struggled at the left tackle spot, so something we're going to look at this offseason is maybe sliding him to left guard, getting an upgrade there at left tackle, or maybe even moving him over to right tackle in hopes that that can kind of solve his deficiencies from last season. Jerry Sexton was a third-round pick from last season out of UW. He goes on to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, star development, so someone we can build our defense around, as our defense did play pretty well last year. Kwity Paye was another free agent signing we brought in. Joey Bosa has one more year on a 2-year contract that he signed. I think he led our team in sacks. We have Darius Robinson, who's 1 year removed from a Pro Bowl, and also Caleb Patton, who is one of our draft picks back in the year one offseason D tackle out of San Diego State. He also has star dev, run stopper scheme fit, which does fit our archetype. Andrew Van Ginkel and Quay Walker complete our linebacking core with the aforementioned Jerry Sexton. They were both, Van Ginkel and Walker, they were both free agent signings, I think, last offseason, where we spent a bunch of money, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. At the corner spots is where we definitely need to look for an upgrade as well. We have Max Melton, who's been serviceable. Nathan Scruggs comes off a decent rookie season. I think we had him as a second-round pick in our year 2 offseason, so this is going to be our year 3 offseason, and yes, the second-round pick back in 2026. So we do have some spots to upgrade, but we need to focus on the offense. As mentioned previously, YaYa Diaby really struggled at left tackle, but we do have Cade Moreland at left guard, and maybe we move him over to center, depending on who's available to upgrade that spot. But we drafted him last year, 11th overall, with the superstar development. He ended up being, I think, the second-ranked player in true talent from last year's draft class. Center, like I said, if we don't move him over, we definitely need an upgrade there. At right guard, we do have Randy Samuels, a draft pick from the year 1 offseason, star development, and he's been all right holding it down there at right guard. I think we can maybe stick with him for another season. And in right tackle, we also drafted Jamie McLean along with Moreland last season, as we double dipped on offensive linemen in the first round, as we do have 2 first-round picks this year. We did last year as well. And you see there, McLean, 7 sacks allowed as a rookie. I think he was with the 29th overall pick last year, or 28th overall pick. So I don't know if we can really stick with him or trust him. He did not turn out to be as good as I thought, especially with that 79 strength. I'm not really sure what we were thinking when we drafted him, but just desperate for offensive line reinforcements as we build up this expansion team. So I think 2 offensive linemen, hopefully we can get on to improve our unit. At tight end, of course, we have Mark Andrews, wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr., who comes off a disappointing third-year campaign with the Snowhawks. Only 797 receiving yards with only 3 touchdowns after over 1,100 in his first 2 seasons. And Kadarius Toney was actually our leading receiver last season with in catches and receiving yards. But we definitely need to upgrade our receiving core, and that's going to be the focal point of this offseason. We'll take a look at the receiving class for the draft here shortly, but first we'll get to free agency. And then, of course, at running back, we only have Trey Benson, and he's really struggled kind of out of the gate to start his NFL career. Only 3.5 yards per carry last season with only 3 touchdowns. So I think we definitely need to add playmakers in the passing game and on the ground. So our running game and our receiving game, our offense as a whole, just really needs a lot of work. Our franchise quarterback, we'll go back real quick, take a look at Lucas McDonald. We drafted him 23rd overall back in year 1, and he had a good sophomore campaign. I would say he improved, but the team around him just was not up to par. The rating did improve by a couple points, but passing yards down, whereas his touchdown interception ratio did improve, as well as his completion percentage did go down, and he took a lot more sacks at 53. So that just goes to show, despite his athleticism and his ability to, move out of the pocket and evade pass rushers, he's still getting sacked a bunch. and rushing yards over 500 with a couple scores last year, as he can make plays with his legs. 93 speed, 90 throw power with good accuracy ratings as well. Superstar development. So this whole offseason, the whole theme is going to be building around Lucas McDonald, getting him some playmakers, fortifying that offensive line, and hopefully, rounding out the edges of this expansion team, as we do have a good foundation in place. The last 2 years, we've signed 19 players in free agency. I don't know if it's going to be as many this season, or this offseason, I should say, but we have a set plan of attack, and we know what we need. So without further ado, let's take a look at this free agency pool, and at first glance, it does not look that great. Ronnie Stanley, the top guy on the market. We did say we needed a left tackle, and he could be the guy at 33 years old, could serve as a good one-year stopgap, and someone we could put at McDonald's blindside, build up that confidence as he continues to develop further along into our franchise. Quarterback DeMarcus Lawrence, now 35 years old. We have a few punters here. Kendall Fuller, star development there at corner, 32 years old. Spent last season with our Snowhawks, but just as you see there on the interest bar, no interest in returning, as none of these top guys have any interest in even signing with our Snowhawks. We see here Christian McCaffrey, and this could be an interesting one. I did not mean to go into negotiations. I want to take a look at his player card. So 31 years old, 89 speed. The ratings are still pretty good overall, despite being 31, aging a little bit at this point. But based on his skill set, he can do a lot of things for our offense that we lacked last year. He would serve as an upgrade over Trey Benson, 1,000 yards the past 2 seasons, only 8 touchdowns last season. But receiving-wise, he did add over 600 yards. And like I said, I think he could do a lot of things very well for our offense and provide a lot of juice that we were just missing overall. Then there's Chase Brown, who also does not have any interest in signing with the Snowhawks, but we really need one of these running backs, I think. Brown, very steady production over his career with the Bengals, a career-high 11 touchdowns last season. And I like the skill set with that 93 speed. He can be, a home run hitter, but of course we have to improve the offensive line. And there's also Tank Bigsby, who I think kind of completes the big 3 of running backs here on the market. As we go down, we have Elijah Mitchell, has some interest in joining the Snowhawks, along with Devin Singletary now at 29 years old, but no one really interested, and I can't blame them. We just had such a disappointing season last year, and at 4-13, 9 of our losses were by 7 points or less, so all within one possession. We just need to add the guys now who can put us over the top and get us to win those close games. So I think looking at running backs here, Tank Bigsby, we didn't really do a dive on. Let's look at his stats from last year. Still with the Jaguars, 349 yards with 4.5 per carry, which is a full yard more than what we were getting with Trey Benson. Also 8 touchdowns to boot. You like that 6 foot 213 frame, decent power back with some elusive traits as well. And unlike Brown, he does have that star development. I think all these guys are. Brown actually asking for 3 years. McCaffrey asking for 2, with just one team interested at this point. So I don't know if we're going to be able to beat that team out, depending on who it is and how much interest he has in joining them, because these top 3 guys we're going to likely target absolutely nil in terms of interest. But let's look at wide receivers, and it doesn't look much better here either. Dontavian Wicks, the top guy, the only guy with at least 80 overall. We have Trey Tucker here, 94 speed. Marquise Brown, the only guy here in this top cluster who has any interest in joining our team. Now at 30 years old, known as a deep threat, 9 touchdowns last year, a career high for him in his age 30 season, and the production honestly was not that bad. So he might be someone we consider to bolster our receiving core a little bit, although Dontavian Wicks, he and Trey Tucker, both just 26 years old. Let's take a look at Wicks' production from a year ago. Past 2 seasons with Tampa Bay, and the Buccaneers actually lost in the Super Bowl last year. But again, a very steady production from Wicks, almost identical across the board, honestly, in every category, although the rack went up a lot this past season. So Wicks may be someone to consider. He has no one interested right now, looking for a 2-year contract. Trey Tucker, kind of the same ballpark contract-wise, with one team interested at this point. Marquise Brown also has a team vying for his services. Cooper Kupp now at 34 years old. Let's go down the board here a little bit. We have Deontay Johnson, Trey Palmer interested, and Trey Palmer with 95 speed. That is pretty intriguing. Take a look at his production. Also with Tampa Bay, only 1 catch the past 2 seasons, so sparingly, if not never used. Any return stats? not from the past 2 seasons. So looks like Trey Palmer, someone who just kind of got forgotten there in that Tampa Bay receiving core, and he wants 2 years at about 5.5 per. I really like the athletic traits there, so maybe someone we just add as a depth guy if we strike out on some of the top guys here. But even the top guys, I feel like aren't too far off in terms of skill level when you compare that to Trey Palmer. Anyone else down here does not look like it. Alan Lazard, Bub Means, gotta love that name. Devin Duvernay. So receivers and running backs, the 2 areas we really need to focus on improving. Not much there, and what is there, they don't really have any interest in joining our team. So it's going to take a lot. Probably going to have to overpay by a good bit to get any of these guys. But receivers, it looks like Wicks, just because he has no one interested right now, will be on our radar along with Marquise Brown because he has interest. But although we might have to outbid someone for him. And then also there was Trey Palmer down here, kind of like a backup plan to our backup plan. But he might be the easiest we can kind of lure into Salt Lake City. And then running backs, I think McCaffrey might be the guy to target just because of that dynamic skill set, even though he is going to regress a little bit. I would like to get him on a 1-year deal if we could, although I don't know if that's something he'd want to do at this phase in his career, come to a team. While we feel we're kind of on the brink of something special, we still have a lot more to prove. Tight ends, I really like Darnell Washington, even though tight end, not a pressing need for us. How do you pass on a 6'7", 264 tight end with 84 speed and pretty good blocking ratings as well? So tight end obviously not on the forefront of what we need. Already spending big money to bring in Mark Andrews last season, but I do like him. Someone to consider if he's still sitting there in maybe phase 2 or 3. So now we get to the offensive lineman. Ronnie Stanley, the big prize this year, although it's probably just going to be a 1-year contract. Zion Johnson, star development left guard here from the Chargers, former first-round pick. Great traits all around, really no weakness in his game. So I think Ronnie Stanley, Zion Johnson, maybe 2 guys we also have to target, as well as the skill players aren't really there in free agency, but if we can get upgrades on the offensive line, even if it's by way of Ronnie Stanley for 1 season, I wouldn't mind that too much. And hopefully, that we could maybe find someone in the draft this year or next year to fill that place. So just on a quick glance, I don't think Jedrick Wills is anyone who really serves as a big upgrade on our line at this point. Although, going back a offseason or 2, he definitely would have been someone we would target with that age and interest combination, along with a decent overall rating, but otherwise no one really interested. Zion Johnson would be a really good acquisition, but no interest at all either. Evan Brown, 78 overall, again, not really much of an upgrade on our line. Ryan Kelly is someone interesting, 34 years old, obviously most of his career spent in Indianapolis, but just based on his experience, I think he could be someone, if we don't end up transitioning Cade Moreland from left guard to center, I think Kelly could serve as a very good stopgap for 1 season, manning our center position on offense. Right guard, really no one of note, and right tackle, no one of note either, and no one here has any interest either. So that's just a quick rundown of the offensive side of the ball. And also a side note, since my last recording here, I've acquired a cat, so I have a little cat running around. If you hear her little scampers, she likes to get her input in as well as my co-host, so you might hear her 2 cents coming in at times. She has been named assistant general manager of the Snowhawks, so you might hear her input from time to time. But with that being said, we'll do a quick rundown of the defense, and then we'll get some contract offers in. We saw that DeMarcus Lawrence, along with Ronnie Stanley, were both the top guys available on the market, both at 86 overall. Last year, Lawrence did spend the season with the Giants, where he recorded 12.5 sacks, so still kicking, and 3 seasons in a row with double-digit sacks, as Lawrence cementing himself as one of the best pass rushers of the past decade or so. Not a position we really need. I mean, we could upgrade really at every position if we think about it, but with $103 million in cap space, if we want to pursue Ronnie Stanley, he's asking for 21.6, but if we want to get him, we're probably going to have to offer him like $25 million for the season, so that'll be about a quarter of our available cap room, so I don't think we could really pursue DeMarcus Lawrence at this point. There's Zach Sealer, 9.5 sacks as a left end there on the Miami Dolphins. Someone we would put on our interior, but not really something we're thinking about at this point as we try to upgrade the offense and prioritize that. Leonard Williams, an intriguing name, although now in his age 33 season, and again, none of these guys any semblance of interest until we get down here to like James Houston and Carl Granderson. Still in the red, but we have something. Dietrich Wise Jr., I believe, spent time with our Snowhawks back in year 1, maybe even back in year 2. Mike Morris, some interest there, but 68 overall. We'll go over to right end now. Mike Dana, former Michigan product, at 81 overall, but no one of note here as we get to right end, and no one of interest either until we get here to defensive tackle Deron Payne. And we have Robinson and Caleb Patton as our D tackles, also of the run stopper archetype. But Deron Payne, the fact that he has interest, I do like. Spent last season with the Rams, but really not much production there. More of a rotational piece at this point in his career. But I kind of do like him. 77 speed with that 95 strength combo. Although $18 million per year is quite steep, and that would have to come down about 33%, I think, before we would feel comfortable offering him a contract. Just going down the board here at D tackle, we have a few interested here. Tahir Tart, Carl Brooks, Harrison Phillips, Devon Hamilton. But we're not going to really focus on the defensive line quite yet. But if we do, I think Payne or maybe even Zach Seiler, someone we pursue, although they are asking for a lot of money. DeForest Buckner is also interesting. I mean, of course, a little bit older now at age 33. All these guys that we're kind of thinking of pursuing, including Christian McCaffrey, a little past their prime, still Ronnie Stanley playing at a high level, but not that all-pro level we're used to seeing. But DeForest Buckner still playing at an incredibly high level with 9 sacks last year, 22 tackles for loss, and 10.5 sacks the year prior, as he's established himself as one of the best D tackles of the past decade or so. But we have some guys to consider there on the defensive line, depending on what our cap situation is looking like. At linebacker, we're pretty well equipped there. We could maybe add a depth guy if someone's interested. Uchenna Nwosu, he's more of a guy you put off the edge, not really an off-ball guy, so I don't know if we'd consider him. KJ Britt spent a season in Salt Lake City. I've always liked Baron Browning, especially that 86 speed, so maybe someone we consider as a depth piece at middle linebacker. Henry 2020, I think, led the league in tackles in year 1 of our franchise, or maybe year 2, or he was at least up the board there. Mika McFadden had a good year with our Snowhawks. Was that year 2? I lost track, so much time away from this franchise, but we're getting re-immersed, and we're definitely getting the motivation back to record these episodes. I always like doing it, but it's just the further it got away from actually doing it, the more kind of intimidating it got, but just needed to get back on that horse. Drew Sanders, someone of note here, very, very interested as a 77 overall middle linebacker, 6'5", 233, a scheme fit as a field general. Not much playing time over his 4 years in Denver, the reigning Super Bowl champions, if I recall correctly. So more of a depth guy on that defense, but maybe he could, bring something from that winning culture they established. So even though he's asking for 5.5 per year with 2 teams interested, I don't know if that's really worth paying a depth guy, although he certainly could work into the rotation, I figure, as we now get here to corners. And I believe we tried to get Kendall Fuller back, but as you see, there's just no interest, so we'll just move on from him, even though, again, he probably could serve as a good 1-year option in the back end of our defense. And then we get to some other younger corners here. Kaiir Elam, Jalen Jones, and then Beanie Bishop Jr. does have interest. Michael Carter II, only asking for $4 million a year. And we do need a slot corner. I think he could fill that spot pretty well, although not much production last season with the Jets, although 3 interceptions the year before that, and does bring some experience and could bring some competitive spirit to our cornerback room, as we certainly could use that. Deonte Banks, I love that 94 speed with that 6'2 height combo. Go down his ratings a little bit. Man coverage at 75, 74 for zone. So those could use some improvement, but still only 26 years old. Certainly a lot of potential. Someone who could maybe just fill a depth spot for us or play as more of a rotational piece if we can't upgrade our cornerback position via the draft, because there's really not many opportunities to do so like we saw with running back, receiver. There's just not many opportunities to improve our team, really upgrade our positions. A lot of these guys kind of the same tier or a tier below of what we currently have. So I think we're going to really have to focus on the draft and improving our positions of need. But there are some nice pieces we can add, but I certainly don't think they're going to put us over the top, or at least most of them. I think McCaffrey and Ronnie Stanley could definitely be players that bring another couple wins to our team, maybe put us as a 6-7 win team like we were back in year 2. but for the most part, we're really going to have to focus on the draft. We have the 3rd overall pick, the 28th overall pick, and at the end of the episode, we will take a quick look at the draft and kind of talk about our strategy. You could always go back to the last episode. I know we did a little draft preview in that episode as well, but let's just get into some contract offers now. I don't want to drag this on too much. I am going to split free agency and the draft this year. I know I usually just do the offseason in one big episode, but I think we'll just split it up this year. And we're going to try to offer Christian McCaffrey. Of course, we're going to have to give him a player-friendly contract offer. Definitely not the 3 years, though. I think we'll just keep it in this player-friendly range, but we'll go down to 2 years. We'll up the salary to $4 million. Bring the guaranteed money down a little bit. So that's a 2-year contract offer, $14 million, which doesn't seem to be the best offer for McCaffrey. I think we are going to actually have to bump that up a little bit. We'll go to $4.4 million, put the guaranteed money up, go to 3.5. So that brings it up to 2 years at 15.8, which of course is an auto pay, especially for the McCaffrey we're going to be getting at this stage in his career. But I think he would provide a lot for us, and we have the ample cap room to use. So, might as well use it. And a pretty strong offer. I'm not sure if that's going to get it done, but I think we did quite well as we do pass the Browns. So at this point, it's deciding between us or the Browns. So hopefully, we're not insulted too much based on where he decides to go. So let me know what you think. Do you think we should have went with one of the younger options here and maybe Chase Brown or Tank Bigsby? As I do think Bigsby would also serve to be a very good option on our offense. And you know what? We might even just go ahead and offer 2 running backs. I don't see why not. I mean, Trey Benson, I think, has just really fallen out of favor. We might even be able to trade him away for a late round pick if we do end up signing 2 of these running backs. But even if we don't, it's good to have a little insurance plan here. So that gets me thinking Tank Bigsby versus Chase Brown. I think that we can maybe make a run at Bigsby. He's asking for more years, but he is a year younger than Brown, and he does have that star development. And even if we miss out on Bigsby or even miss out on McCaffrey or both of them, we could always just go after Brown in the next phase, seeing as how he has no offers at this point. So I don't even mind using 2 out of our 5 initial contract negotiations to use multiple on running backs, as that is a really big area of need and it's not guaranteed. We do end up with McCaffrey. So with that being said, we are going to go ahead and also offer Tank Bigsby. We'll see what he's asking. So he was asking 3 years if we go to player friendly. And that's really not a bad contract offer at all. I think we could even bump it up a little bit, as he is only 26 years old with that star development. And I think he would be an upgrade over Trey Benson, as we'll see where we end up with that offer. So for Bigsby, we are currently ahead of the Patriots, the Ravens, and the Vikings. We'll see if that stands pat into the next phase. So we are going to hold on to those 2 running back offers. I'm not sure if we're going to do a wide receiver in this phase. If we did, it probably would be Marquise Brown. Not sure who we're bidding against for his services quite yet, but of course we do need to offer Ronnie Stanley, and I don't mind overpaying for him at all. We're going to do a 1-year contract, and I said $25 million was probably the number, and we'll see where we end up. So it looks like we are behind the Raiders. I'm just going to bump it up one more time. We don't want to manipulate the fact that it shows us. I kind of wish it was like NHL, where, the first contract you submit, that's what you're stuck with. There's no going back and seeing how the other teams offered. So we'll do 1 year at $26 million. Hopefully that puts us over the Raiders, as it does not. It looks like the Steelers are also up there. So I don't know. It looks like just a cluster of teams in on Ronnie Stanley. So it's 3 of our 5 active negotiations we can use in this initial phase of free agency. We definitely need to offer Zion Johnson as well. I don't even mind offering him a 4-year contract, although thinking about it, let's actually go down to 3 years. We'll go boost it up 3 years at $42 million for a solid $13 million per season. We'll see where that puts us, as we're not even in the hunt. So 12 teams interested in Zion Johnson. I think we will just go ahead and withdraw our offer. Does not seem to be realistic that we're going to be able to bring him in. So Ryan Kelly might be someone we look at as a 1-year option on our offensive line. And we actually will just go ahead and offer Ryan Kelly, make him the 4th out of 5 initial negotiations we can have here in phase 1. And even at 34 years old, still, the rating's not bad at all. 83 overall, pass protector, power, and agile. So just a very well-rounded player, 85 strength, but everything over 80, and that awareness at 95. You love that experience that we probably could really use on our offensive line, fairly inexperienced with a couple players, only in their second or third year as we start year 4. So I think Ryan Kelly will be a nice stabilizing presence on our offensive line, and he has no offer, so I think we could pull down a little bit, and we'll just go about $9 million here for him. And now with that done, hopefully he accepts a little more of a frugal offer as we try to conserve some cap room, although I don't know. We're probably going to have an excess, especially, not getting in on Zion Johnson like we had hoped. So 4 out of 5, we probably want to go receiver now. As I said, we want to commit to really improving this offense. So now it just comes down to which receiver do we want to pursue, and now kind of just comparing Wicks and Tucker here side by side. Tucker is definitely the better athlete, or more dynamic athlete, we'll say, but Wicks a little bit stronger, just more well-rounded, more polished, and I don't know if the ceiling is all that high, but I think a very high floor, and I think the big difference here is that 82 release compared to Tucker's at 68, really struggles to get off the line, but if you get the ball in his hands, and he can bring you deep, very dynamic in that way, but we need a little more sturdiness and consistency on our offense, which I think kind of rules out Marquise Brown as well. So just based on the past production of Wicks coming off a team that won the NFC Championship, I think we'll just try and offer him a 1-year deal here, and kind of like we did with Kelly, since he has no offers, we'll just go 1 year, because especially in the draft, I'm going to expect us to draft at least 2 receivers, so we don't want to create too much of a logjam. So we'll go 1 year at $7 million, a little bit low, but we could always increase it if another team tries to start pursuing him. So with that, we're going to go over to our targeted players. We're neck and neck here, along with the Rams, Raiders, and Steelers for Ronnie Stanley. We offered him 1 year at $26 million. And let's just go ahead. We'll increase it a little bit more. Just we still had like 40, 50 million in cap space. So we have a bunch to spend. We were at 26 million before. We'll bring it up now, and we'll go 26.6, just over a little $500,000 there on top. Go ahead and advance through this eval period, but we also lead for McCaffrey, Ryan Kelly, and Wicks. The only offers for them a little bit low. Hopefully that gets it done. Then also Tank Bigsby, we lead over the Patriots. So as we skip through eval period 1, we end up signing McCaffrey and Bigsby, so that was pretty easy. And Ryan Kelly and Wicks also here, but it looks like Ronnie Stanley ended up signing with the Raiders, so we missed out on our top target here, especially with Zion Johnson, him not being interested at all. He also signs with Washington, so 2 big signings off the rip, but we do get the 2 running backs we wanted, and that now pretty much forces Trey Benson out the door. We didn't do too much scouting into this running back draft class, hence why we took more of a heavy approach here in free agency. But let's also go to our negotiations. The Seahawks and Broncos getting in on Dontavian Wicks, so I think we are going to have to up our offer a little bit. We might just have to go 2 years at $16 million, which is more money and obviously an extra year than what we originally offered, but that does put us over Seattle and Denver. The only reluctancy I have towards offering Wicks is, as I said, I expect us to draft, I think, at least 2 receivers in this year's class. We have 5 picks in the top 100, and as mentioned earlier, we also have 2 first-round picks, including the 3rd overall pick, although I'm expecting us to trade down, work a trade down in that spot. Some other signings here is Bryce Young goes to the Rams, Will Levis goes to the Panthers, McCaffrey and Bigsby, the only running back signed thus far. Jahan Dotson found a home as he goes to the Giants. Parker Washington to the Titans. Tight end Dawson Knox to the Jets. Should we maybe try just to offer a low offer here for Darnell Washington? No offers would be a nice number 2 behind Mark Andrews, I think. Wants a lot of guaranteed money. I'd rather give him more salary. We'll go 2.5 there and then bring the bonus down to 3. That's 2 years at $11 million. I have no idea what that'll look like, and it's red, so I don't think that's going to get it done. We got 2 bars there on the interest meter. We'll just throw it out there. I mean, we have 2 more active negotiations to work with. Do we take a run at Jedrick Wills Jr.? I don't know if he would serve as the biggest upgrade on our offensive line. Not much of a run blocker either. As good as he is in pass protection, I really would prefer a well-rounded offensive lineman, as we do need to focus on upgrading our running game as well as the passing game, not just one-sided there. No other offensive lineman really piqued our interest. We'll look at Anthony Bradford here, former LSU Tiger at 6'5", 345, a power archetype, and that 60 pass block finesse is enough for me to not really pursue him at all. Wouldn't be a bad depth piece, but we don't really need that at this point. We have some young guys who we feel comfortable with in our backup spots. Anton Harrison signs with the Raiders as well. They're making a heavy presence so far in free agency, signing 2 tackles. Deron Payne still on the market, does have 6 teams pursuing him. Kenny Clark to the Colts, Tershawn Wharton to the Broncos, Mozzie Smith to the Seahawks, Devontae Wyatt to the Patriots. We'll also offer a corner at this point, as Kendall Fuller signs a 1-year deal with the Giants. Jalen Jones to the Rams, Beanie Bishop to the Giants as well. So they signed 2 of the top corners on the market. So Michael Carter, and also there was Deonte Banks I liked. We'll take a bigger look at him right here. 78 man-to-man corner, 94 speed, very good acceleration and jumping. And if we can bring those coverage traits up a little bit, I think he could be a pretty good player there on the outside, working the boundary. And if you look up there as well towards his overall, he does have an upgrade coming up soon. So maybe offer him a 1-year contract if he has no teams interested right now. We'll also take a look at Michael Carter II with his 91 speed, 93 acceleration, decent jumping, decent coverage traits as well, but a little bit older than Banks at 28. What was Banks, 26? So I do like that upside, and I also would like to draft a corner. Like I said, we have 2 first-round picks. I'm hoping to trade down from 3 into the teens or the middle of the first round, and then maybe trade up with that 28th overall pick. Maybe trade up, take one of the top corners in the class. But for now, let's offer Deonte Banks. I guess we even could go 2 years with not much in guaranteed money. We'll bring that down to 1.4, go 2.2 salary. So a 2-year offer at $7.2 million, which didn't break the bank or his interest bar, but maybe that'll be enough to get it done. And then also, let's go down to Drew Sanders here. We'll just offer him as well. He's very interested in joining the team, so maybe someone who could just fill in as a depth piece. We'll just go with that neutral medium risk offer, see how that holds up, as that does lead over the Vikings and the Buccaneers. So we now offer a couple defensive guys. I think next phase we'll look at a defensive tackle just to add some depth, someone who can fill in rotationally if maybe Deron Payne is still there, as we'll go back over to our active negotiations and skip ahead an eval period. And I think we should just up the ante here a little bit on Ryan Kelly, on the old veteran. Just go $10 million even. That seems pretty fair for both sides. We upped the offer on Wicks. Also got Banks, Sanders, and Darnell Washington offered as well. As we skip ahead, Banks and Washington still sitting there, as we do sign Ryan Kelly, Dontavian Wicks, and Drew Sanders as well. Sanders a 2-year deal at about $11 million, and we have the cap room to spare, especially missing out on those offensive linemen we were targeting in Stanley and Zion Johnson. But at least we do get Ryan Kelly. As I said, he'll bring a lot of stability and experience to our center spot. It'll allow Cade Moreland to stick at left guard and just really to continue to develop into one of the game's best at that spot. We still do have Ike Mekonu at left tackle, and I don't know if we want to stick with him there, but we may have no other choice. Although we could always explore the trade market, but who knows if anything's even going to be there. But it certainly wouldn't hurt to check it out. But before that, let's wrap up free agency. We don't have much left to do. We've already done pretty much all we needed to do, or all that we could accomplish here with, what was given to us. But Deonte Banks now, Seattle is outbidding us. We're not going to really get into a bidding war with a corner in free agency. If there was someone a little bit more worthwhile, maybe we would have. But it looks like Deonte Banks may be destined for Seattle. We'll maybe try to up the offer a little bit, but we're not going to go too crazy here. 2.8. I don't even know if this was more than what we offered initially, as it does get us back up above Seattle. So we'll just leave that like that for now. There was one more player of interest I liked here at right outside linebacker, and that's Draymond Jones, 6'3", 281, outside linebacker here in the 3-4 scheme there with the Las Vegas Raiders over the past 2 seasons. But I just like the flexibility and versatility he provides. Probably going to move him to our defensive line somewhere, probably play on the interior or on the edges, but regardless, someone who adds decent depth. Kind of wants a lot in guaranteed money. I don't know about that. We'll go down to 2.2, so a 1-year deal at $3.8 million. I don't know if he'll accept that even, but just want to throw our hat in the ring for him. And then there was another guy here, Trey Palmer, who we talked about earlier at wide receiver. see if he has any interest. And even though we already did sign Dontavian Wicks and we do plan on drafting a receiver or two, I still don't even mind adding Trey Palmer with his 95 speed. And I didn't mean to X out of him, but let's take a bigger look here at his player card. As I said, the 95 speed, a deep threat slot guy, 92 acceleration with 86 catching, everything else there, low 80s, high 70s for the most part. So pretty balanced wide receiver. And if he doesn't crack our wide receiver rotation, especially if we do bring in a couple guys via the draft, he could always contribute as a return man. And he does have interest in joining our team, which we do like. So for the salary, will go down a little bit. Guaranteed money go down a little bit. So it'll be a 1-year deal at $4.4 million. And I think that just about does it for free agency. We already have, I think, at this point, 58 players on our roster. So we don't really have many more spots, especially with 9 draft picks coming up in this year's draft. So we'll skip ahead another eval period as Deonte Banks does sign, but not with us. It looks like Deonte Banks ended up going to Seattle. We'll go over to position here as most of these top corners on the market are signing, although Michael Carter II still out there, as well as Jaquan McMillan. Deonte Banks does go to Seattle on a 2-year contract worth just over $8 million. So I think they offered him less than we did, but Seattle, a couple years removed from a Super Bowl, as he does join our division, just not with our team. So I did have a few backup plans here at corner. As I said, Michael Carter II. There's also Jaquan McMillan, 27 years old, I think a Buccaneer, former Buccaneer last year, 57 tackles, 5 for loss and interception, 5 pass deflections. So he had a major role on this defense that won the NFC Championship. So I do like that winning pedigree he could bring. And then there was one more player down here I remember liking on my initial run through. That's Emmanuel Forbes Jr., 6 foot 173. I think a former first-round pick of the Commanders, if I'm not mistaken, as a 16th overall pick back in 2023. Then spent the last 3 seasons with the Rams. Let's take another look at McMillan. We didn't even really look at his traits, just his production from last season. And not the most athletic at just 88 speed, but the agility and jumping is pretty good. Man coverage at 84, 79 zone with good play rec. So another experienced player who at worst case will be our 4th cornerback, depending on if we do draft somebody. I would really like to get a corner with our late first round pick. I'm thinking we maybe trade down from 3, get a pick around like 12 or 15, and then maybe trade up from 28 and get a pick around 18 or 20. So ideally maybe end up with 2 mid first round picks, depending on what happens. So for now, I think we'll just go ahead and offer McMillan. He does want 2 years, but we'll just go ahead and offer him 1 year and not really demanding too much at all. We'll go 3 point, or even could probably go down to 3.5 on 1 year. Missed out on Deonte Banks, so he's kind of just our backup plan in this spot. We still have offers to Darnell Washington, Trey Palmer, and Draymond Jones as well. All these offers 2 bars, but no one else interested. So hopefully these lower offers can get it done, as we'll skip ahead again. As we actually do have to advance now, not even from within free agency. We have to advance the week altogether to stage 2. And at some point, we're going to get mock draft 5. I think we will get mock draft 5 now, as it is available to view. But before we look at that and get into a little draft preview for next episode, we're just going to wrap up free agency, put a bow on that, as we have no more offers we want to give to any free agents right now. We'll just wrap up with these offers to McMillan, Palmer, Washington, and Jones. Advance through the eval period, as still none of them have signed. We'll do it again. And we did get one signing, it looks like, as Darnell Washington signs a 2-year deal at $11 million. And with him, we just really like the upside at 6'7", 264, just an absolute force there with 84 speed and pretty good blocking ratings as well. 65 pass block, 65 for run block power, and 66 run block finesse as well. So a decent number 2 there behind Mark Andrews. That kind of forces Tip Ryman out of favor, as we have one more eval period in this stage. And it looks like we also got Jaquan McMillan to sign as well. So an experienced corner who played in some big games last season as the slot man for that Tampa Bay defense can maybe occupy that role if we can't upgrade it through the draft, which leaves just now Trey Palmer and Draymond Jones. And again, we are going to have to advance through the stage 2 entirely. And we will, as I said, take a look at that mock draft here shortly. We're also going to give our private workouts as well as we wrap up our scouting for this year's draft. But let's see if we can first get Jones signed along with Palmer. As we skip ahead, we do get Trey Palmer signed, it looks like, as he signs a 1-year, $4.4 million deal. And now Draymond Jones And it looks like he's going to go unsigned. So it looks like he will just remain a free agent for now. So this is going to be our free agency this year, folks. Christian McCaffrey, of course, the most notable name we were able to come away with after falling on Ronnie Stanley as he signs with the Raiders. Ryan Kelly, the experienced center, should bring a lot more stability and veteran leadership to our offense, which is desperately needed, especially with a third-year quarterback in Lucas McDonald. We got Tank Bigsby, another reinforcement for our running game, which should prove to be a very good combination there with Christian McCaffrey, both bringing a different skill set. Dontavion Wicks should pair nicely with Marvin Harrison as a nice, sturdy complement there to our top receiver. Jaquan McMillan, another seasoned veteran who could occupy our slot role. Drew Sanders, a good depth linebacker, but still very, very young, and there's definitely some upside there with his athletic profile. Trey Palmer, 95 speed, gotta love that. Depth wide receiver, but also can contribute as a return man. And Darnell Washington, you just love the size, athletic profile that he brings to the table. So like I have harped on and emphasized throughout this episode, not many areas to improve there on offense for us, but I still like getting McCaffrey and Bigsby to upgrade our running game a little bit, and also providing Wicks as a decent number 2 there to Marvin Harrison Jr., although we really would like to bring someone in via the draft. So before we move on, there was one more thing I wanted to address in this offseason before we did advance to the NFL draft, and I scoured the trade block. There was nothing to be found there in terms of upgrading our offensive line. I'll go through a couple scenarios I was looking at. The Chicago Bears, reigning NFC North champions, that have a few good tackles here, starting with Braxton Jones, star development. And looking at his stats, it looked like he didn't even really play last year, unless he just went the whole season without allowing a sack. Either didn't play or just had a phenomenal season. Couldn't really tell there. But they also have Demario Cooks, second-year offensive lineman, and I looked at his games played as well, and he had a few sacks given up, 7 last year, so it looks like he was a starting offensive lineman. And they also have Darnell Wright here, entering an expiring contract, star development at age 26, and I would say maybe we could make a trade for him just based on the fact that he's on an expiring deal, has a $17 million cap hit, but the Bears in pretty good cap shape at this point, so don't really need to force a trade. So I was thinking maybe Braxton Jones, but I think they might use one of these guys on the interior as they're very weak at that spot. So I think the Bears, a win-now team coming off a division title, I don't think they're going to be forcing a trade. So then I was also looking at the Broncos. They have Brendan Donnell here at left tackle, third year, going to be entering his third year out of Ohio State, former first-round pick. So you think they want to get him some starting snaps eventually. And then you look at right tackle Taylor Moton and also Kirk Burton, a star development right tackle coming off his second year. So the Broncos have invested here at offensive tackle. Burton, a second-round pick a couple years back. So it looks like they might be able to throw them into the fire. A team, coming off a Super Bowl championship, you can't always keep all those places in peace, especially as the cap situation gets a little more restraining. So I was thinking of maybe pursuing Taylor Moton here, now at 33 years old, maybe 1-2 more good seasons left of football. But again, Broncos really not in bad cap space as you would expect from a Super Bowl winning team. So I think we'll just let them stand pat. So I was also looking at a few other teams, and where I landed was the Las Vegas Raiders. Of course, as we said, we missed out on Ronnie Stanley earlier as he signs a 1-year contract with the Raiders. So then I was also looking at Colton Miller here, and the only reason is also because the Raiders also signed Anton Harrison, signed him to a 2-year contract in free agency. So it looks like they're eager to move on from Colton Miller, who carries a $17.8 million cap hit. They have just over $2 million in available cap space, so they desperately need to clear some. And, what better way to do that than trading away Colton Miller, who now at 31 years old has surrendered double-digit sacks in the past 2 seasons. So the play is definitely regressing a little bit, has a $19 million cap hit after this year. But even with that being said, I think he does present a replacement of what we currently have. I think the Raiders would be kind of desperate to get rid of him at this point. As we mentioned, they really need to get rid of some cap space, and we have plenty to spare at $55 million. So I think we'll try and work a trade for Colton Miller here. I have no idea what they would be demanding. You have to consider his age is getting up there. He's regressing a little bit. We'll take a bigger look at his player card right here. But overall, 85 strength, not bad there, and 80 at least in every other category besides run blocking, which is at 77. His morale very low, which is why some of these are taking a hit, and I think he has regressed a little bit. Speed went down 1, pass block power down 3, pass block finesse down 1, run block down 2, but not major regression. And as I said, once he gets that morale back to start next season, he should be an 80 overall or so. So I think we might make a run here at Colton Miller. We have Trey Benson now. We could maybe get him out of there. So they could use a decent number 2 running back behind Jaylen Warren, who they signed a couple off seasons back, I believe. So maybe we could just throw Trey Benson into this deal and maybe attach a draft pick with that. I'm not sure if that would get it done. But still, I mean, Trey Benson certainly has some value at 25 years old. Still star development, but just never really got it done with our team. I think he does have some upside still, but if he's going to find that, I think it's going to have to be elsewhere. His rushing totals did increase each season, although the 3 rushing touchdowns, you need that to get up a little bit more, and that 3.5 yards per carry just did not get it done. Plus, he didn't contribute too much in the passing game. So Trey Benson for Colton Miller. And then what if we throw like a 6 on there or a 5 on there? I don't know if that's undervaluing the value of Miller at this point. But like I said, the big cap hit coming off a bad season, starting to regress a little bit. I don't think the Raiders could demand too much. And plus, I don't think they even would want to when you consider them shedding all that cap space. So we have 9 picks this season, 2 4s and 2 1s. Number 3, number 28. What if we did Benson? And what if we just try a 6 for next year? Will that get it done? That might be lowballing them a little bit, as we'll send that over. And they accept that. I honestly did not expect that. So we solve, or at least we hope we solve, our issue on the offensive line by signing Ryan Kelly. We trade for Colton Miller, which hopefully it's just a decent stopgap. But like I said, I did not expect that trade to go over so easily. So with that, we're kind of done with free agency. And I think that's our first player trade we've made in this series. I think all the trades we've made have been by way of just draft picks. So now we'll do a quick free agency recap and put this officially behind us, move into some NFL draft talk as we prepare for next episode. We talked about Bryce Young signing with the Rams earlier. Baker Mayfield goes to the Giants, signing a 1-year, $35+ million contract with them. I believe they drafted a quarterback early last year, but Baker Mayfield led the Buccaneers to the Super Bowl, but a very poor performance, I believe, passed for just 120 yards and completed less than 50% in the big game, but still moves on to another team. I think now the 5th team he's played for in the NFL, 5th or 6th team. Will Levis to the Panthers. Huntley gonna maybe fill the footsteps of Baker Mayfield there with the Buccaneers if they can't upgrade in the draft. Go over to running back now, McCaffrey and Bigsby. So 2 of the top 3 running backs we do bring to Salt Lake City. Chase Brown goes to the Browns. Jerome Ford to the Patriots. Condre Miller also to the Browns. Guerrero to the Ravens. Wide receiver, we get Dontavion Wicks. Trey Tucker goes to the Bucks. Marquise Brown to the Jets. Quentin Johnson also to the Bucks. Now over to tight end Dawson Knox, the big prize in this year's free agency. He stays in the division there, going to the Jets. Now to the offensive line, Ronnie Stanley, of course, signed with the Raiders. Dedrick Wills Jr. to the Falcons. Wanya Morris to the Browns, Alaric Jackson to the Bengals, along with Brady Christensen, former Snowhawk, and Jalen Moore also to the Browns. So 2 left tackles to the Browns, 2 to the Bengals. Washington Commanders get Zion Johnson at left guard. Also the Browns and Bengals signing a left guard as well, 2 for the Bengals. So just both of those teams stocking up on offensive linemen. We get Ryan Kelly at center, right guard. Really no one of note there. Trent Brown to the Jets, Anton Harrison to the Raiders. DeMarcus Lawrence joins the defending Super Bowl champion Denver Broncos, and he comes off a tremendous 1 year there with the New York Giants after signing with them last year's free agency. Deron Payne to the Seahawks, Kenny Clark to the Colts, Sean Wharton to the Broncos. We saw them earlier. DeForest Buckner to the Raiders, along with Mike Dana. Devin Bush to the Bucks, Henry 202 to the Jags, and then there's probably not going to be many other players of note. YaYa Diaby to the Jags, pretty good signing there. Then Kendall Fuller to the Giants. Kyer Elam joins the defending Super Bowl Broncos. Michael Carter II still unsigned. We get Jaquan McMillan. Deontay Banks joins division rival Seattle. And then at safety, Quan Martin to the Ravens. Kobe Bryant's still out there. Sidney Brown signs with the Jets. So from there, we'll now look at the draft a little bit and close this episode to, leave you with some thoughts for next episode, what to expect in the 2027 NFL draft. So as promised, we are going to look at Mock Draft 5 as that's fresh off the press, as we'll say. So going over to Mock Draft 5, Leonard Bailey has been the number 1 overall pick projected in every mock draft besides Mock Draft 1. So the past 4, he's been projected number 1 to the New England Patriots. And I think the only realistic situation in which we stay at pick 3 and not trade down is if Bailey somehow does not get picked number 1 and we end up with him at number 3, as I do think he's the best player in this draft that's at least not a quarterback, which brings us to Tyson Wakefield, the consensus top signal caller in this year's draft, projected there to the New Orleans Saints quarterback out of Notre Dame. And we're projected Markel Pierman, who did end up with a round 1 talent grade, 95% scouted. He's projected to go to us number 3. Although you look at those quick traits on the side, C for catching traffic and catching, F for deep route, and D for release. So definitely not a complete receiver. I don't think he's someone we're going to take this high, maybe more of a mid to late first round guy. And the Raiders are right behind us, projected Percy Bronson, defensive lineman out of Boise State. And then there's Jimmy Gallery projected to the Seahawks, and he's the Heisman Trophy winner, two-way player out of Notre Dame, kind of reminiscent of Travis Hunter. Very, very interesting prospect. I would like to maybe trade down and get him in the 10 to 15 range, but based on this mock draft, I don't think he's going to be there. And Walter Kidd, I think there's like a top 3 grouping of corners in this year's class, and Walter Kidd is definitely one of them. I thought maybe Gallery and Kidd would be available a little bit later, but now both projected in the top 6. We get Lance Shivers out of Ohio State to the Steelers. Braxton Thomas, the top lineman, projected there to the Dolphins, but he had a negative draft story on him recently, saying that he just, he did not look good at his pro day. And I haven't been the biggest fan of him throughout the draft process. JoJo Presley, another one of those big 3 corners I alluded to. So it looks like they're all going to be top 10 guys. I was hoping they would slide down the board a little bit. Zach Joseph, top 10 here to the Giants. Pass rusher out of Notre Dame. And like I said, if we stand at 3, I think Leonard Bailey is our only realistic option. But, Zach Joseph, I think, talent-wise, isn't too far off from him, although he does get that round 1 to 2 talent grade despite being a top 5 projection. So that suggests his overall is probably going to be a low 70s, which I don't know if you want to draft that in the top 10. And then we get another wide receiver here, Philip Lang, deep threat out of Florida, 5'8", 192, and his catching ratings are very poor. So despite his tremendous athleticism, he tested very well at the combine. I don't know if he's someone that you take at 11 either. Then Ben Davis, the second quarterback taken despite a top 5 projection, he goes at 12 to the Cowboys as they look to find the heir apparent to Dak Prescott. So I think considering that the Cowboys really need a quarterback, we can maybe get them to trade up to 3, and we can trade down 9 spots there to 12, maybe recoup a additional first round pick in the future, if not maybe a 2 and a 3 or something of that nature. But it's certainly going to take a compelling package for us to move that 3rd overall pick, which of course is a very, very valuable asset. Another receiver here now to the Chargers, Luke Day, 6'2", 229 out of Alabama. And I think of these first 3 receivers taken, along with Markel Pierman there projected to us at 3, I think Luke Day is the most complete in terms of skill set and athleticism, although he grades out there at round 1 to 2 for talent grade, whereas Lang and Pierman both graded out as round 1 guys. So I think Luke Day may be a step down from them. Kari Boone, the top safety, a very, very good safety class. There's about 4 or 5, I think, that are worthy of first round consideration. Boone, the first one off the board. Joel Adams, center out of Florida, someone we were considering, but now that we signed Ryan Kelly, that frees us up to address other needs. Quincy Valentine, a good D tackle prospect out of Cal. They're 16th to the Commanders. And then Jason Kirkpatrick, someone I was heavily considering here in the first round of this year's draft, tested pretty well. His attributes are pretty good as well, but then you look at that talent grade, and that's round 3 to 4, so he's going to just have a very low overall despite what the development might be. I thought he was a pretty polished prospect, especially with that 6'8", 327 size, but after getting that talent grade back, we just can't consider him at this part of the draft despite his redeeming qualities. We got to trust our scouting department a little bit in that area, especially after getting burned on a first-round offensive tackle towards the end of last year's first round. Lonnie Battle, another tackle there to the Texans. Michael Aiken, another receiver worth considering, although he had a very poor draft story on him throughout the season, I remember. And if you look at his catching grade there on the right, an F for that. So if you're going to draft a receiver in the first round, you want them to be able to catch the ball. A couple more defensive ends here. We get a few more safeties here with 4 out of 5 picks towards the end of the round here. Eric Wimbley out of UCLA, Mario Mentor out of Virginia Tech, and then Tevin Graham out of Stanford. Melo Gillespie, another corner here, and then Tommy Elliott out of Tennessee. So 5 DBs off the board in a row. Make it 6, actually, with Titus McGill, a good zone corner out of Pitt. And then our second first-round pick here at 28, they have another receiver projected to us, Carlos Alvarez, a very, very interesting receiver. And we are going to look at these prospects a little more in-depth here in a second. I just want to run through this mock draft quickly. But Alvarez, very, very good traits, tested very well, and a round 1 talent grade. So at 6'3", 233, that's very imposing. and he did test well. And like I said, probably the most complete receiver of any we've talked about so far. So maybe one of the guys we target in the first round, Jaleel Holmes, D tackle, Carter Harris, and Cliff Bost, another top 5 projected quarterback, the third after Tyson Wakefield and Ben Davis. He's projected all the way down here, 31st to the NFC champion Buccaneers as they look to replace Baker Mayfield. And then Jeffrey Lynch rounds it out there at 32 to the Super Bowl champion Denver Broncos. Now, to close this episode, we'll get a little more in-depth look at this year's draft and what to expect in the next episode. So we see here Tyson Wakefield, the top prospect in this year's class, quarterback out of Notre Dame. And then following him is Ben Davis, quarterback out of Fresno State, looks to join David Carr as another Fresno State quarterback to go in the first round. But we have here Leonard Bailey, who's projected number 1 to the New England Patriots. And I said he's really the only guy we would really consider picking if we stand pat at number 3. You see they're 6'4", 266, 22 years old. Not as finished product as you'd like to see with the B finesse, C block shed, then D power move. But you can take a look at his physicals, and he just absolutely ruled the combine, ruled his pro day with a 4.55 40-yard dash at his pro day. Led all D ends with a vertical jump. Broad jump was second at the combine, and his 3-cone and 20-yard shuttle very good as well. Also has B awareness and play rec and can get off blocks very well when you consider that athleticism, which you really like to see in the top 5 of the draft. And then Zach Joseph, very comparable, I'd say, to Bailey. Not maybe as explosive an athlete, but a little more refined when it comes to skill set. He too has the C for block shed, but C for power move, and the finesse move at an A along with A pursuit. So I think Zach Joseph a little more refined, but not as athletic as Bailey. You know, when you're talking about pass rushers here in the top 5, the top 10 of the draft, you'd really like to have them have that game-changing, dynamic athleticism. And Zach Joseph grading out as around 1 to 2 talent, I think really hurts his chances of us picking him here in the top 5. And so for that reason, I think we're out on him despite the fact that we think he'll be a good player. But Leonard Bailey just a little bit more there in terms of athleticism. I think someone that's destined to have maybe superstar development. So if we don't get Bailey, the backup plan is really trade down, and we'd really be hoping for a wide receiver, maybe one of these corners. We talked about Jimmy Gallery, the Heisman-winning trophy cornerback out of Notre Dame. Two-way player, also played at wide receiver, has that B catching with A press and zone, C man coverage, and even though we're a man coverage defense, I wouldn't even mind taking Gallery just because I think he'll be that much of a playmaker. Tested pretty well in every category. Not the most blazing speed, but a 4.53 or 4.49, very respectable there, especially when you have a tremendous broad jump, very good 3-cone, and otherwise tested very well with A press, as we said, B tackle. And of course, winning the Heisman Trophy, playing on both sides of the ball, he can ball, and he would bring a lot of excitement to our team. Then we have Mario Mentor, the top strong safety, preceded by Wembley and Boone, both free safeties. And if one of these safeties fall to us, we have 5 here in the top 17 of the draft board. If one of them fall to us late first, early second round, we might be inclined to take them, although there is one I like a lot. We'll just skip over to safeties real quick. And where is he at? So Dale Gilmore, 43rd on the overall board, a first to second round projection, 6'2", 203 out of Tennessee, B zone coverage. And you look at those testing numbers, especially the 40-yard dash of 4.39 at his pro day. Ran the fastest of any strong safety at the combine at 4.42. And also the top vertical jump, top broad jump of any safety at the combine. A for awareness, B for pursuit, zone coverage, and hit power, along with tackle as well. So I really like Dale Gilmore as a late first round, early second round type guy. If none of these other guys fall, like Mario Mentor, Tommy Elliott, who was Gilmore's teammate there at Tennessee, made up a very good safety tandem for them. There's Kari Boone out of USF and Eric Wembley out of UCLA, but safety not at the forefront of our needs, but if the value is there, we wouldn't pass it up, which now brings us to corners. We talked about Jimmy Gallery, and then there's Walter Kidd, 6'2", 196 out of Oregon, and JoJo Presley, 6'1", 188 out of Notre Dame. We'll go over to Combine, look at their numbers there. So Presley and Kidd ran identical 40s at the Combine, both at 4.36. Kidd a little bit stronger at 12 reps, but look at Gallery, our boy, 21 reps there on the bench. As you know, the play strength is certainly going to be there along with the play speed. And looking at the vertical, Gallery at 37.4, higher than Kidd, although Presley had them both there at 38.8. Presley and Gallery, both Notre Dame corners, making up a very good tandem there for the Fighting Irish. And then as we get to broad jump 3-cone, not much separation there, although Gallery the best 3-cone, Presley the best 20-yard shuttle, as he looks to be the fastest out of them all. But then let's look at attributes here, see if we can get any separation on that front. All C for play rec. Presley the best man cover corner, whereas Gallery the best zone coverage corner. Walter Kidd BB for man and zone, whereas Presley AB. So Presley might be the best athlete and maybe the best in coverage, but I think Gallery just might be the best player overall. But very good corner prospects here. I really hope we can end up with one of these guys, ideally maybe at 12 if we trade down with the Dallas Cowboys. Linebacker class, really not much here to talk about. We're pretty set in our ways with who we have, although we really do like Deshaun Gross, projected round 3 to 4 guy, but we came back as a round 1 to 2 talent field general out of Arizona State. B for block shed and tackle. That zone coverage going to be a B or C. Tested very well, 4.54, 40-yard dash at the combine. That went down to a 4.47 at his pro day. 20 to 22 reps, the vertical jump and 20-yard shuttle, the best of any middle linebacker in this year's class, with a very good broad jump and 3-cone to boot. So Gross, someone we really like. We hit on a linebacker in the 3rd round of last year with Jerry Sexton, who would go on to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, and Deshaun Gross looks to be in a very similar mold as the aforementioned Sexton. D-tackle, a cluster of guys here, not the biggest need, but a few guys who do pique our interest, maybe late day 2, early day 3. It is a pretty good DN class, but not our biggest need unless we can maybe end up with Leonard Bailey, who looks to be the top prospect in this year's class. Quarterbacks aside, we'll go through offensive line really quick. And then we talked about Jason Kirkpatrick a little bit. A for awareness and impact block, C for pass block, and B for run block. Very good imposing size at 6'8". Tested not the best now that I look at it again. Not the worst as far as left tackles are concerned, but a very just balanced, well-rounded skill set, which I thought would lead to a better talent grade, but at round 3 to 4 talent grade, based on our scouting, just not someone we can think about there in round 1. And then there's Braxton Thomas, who actually gets passed up by Kirkpatrick here on the board. Kirkpatrick goes to 10, Braxton Thomas down to 11. And I mentioned that I haven't really been the biggest fan of Braxton Thomas, a pass protector archetype out of Stanford. Gets A for impact and pass block, C for run block. Did not test well really in any category besides the 20-yard shuttle, which he was first at among pro days, second at the combine. And skills, kind of like Kirkpatrick, not the worst, pretty good skills, but it's just a poor combine that really brings him down. And we do have to get our 3 private workouts in as well. I was considering putting Thomas there just to get a talent grade on him, but I don't think it's even going to be worth it, as not someone we're going to target in the first round. And I don't think he's even going to come back with a first round grade, which now brings us into the heavy wide receiver class, where we have it all pretty much scouted. All these guys at 95, 100% scouted. So we pretty much have the pick of the litter, but there's just not much separation here at all, which makes it so tough to decipher and differentiate these receivers, who we think is the best of the bunch. So I think that pretty much establishes that corner might be the way we go early on in the first round if we don't get Leonard Bailey at 3, as he is expected to go number 1 to the Patriots. So hopefully we can work a trade down to maybe 10 or 12, take one of those corners. Ideally, I think Gallery is the guy we want, and then maybe we could trade up from 28 maybe to 20 or so and snag one of these receivers, get another one a little bit later. But we talked about Markel Pierman, 6'3", 207 out of USC. Seems to be the consensus top receiver in this year's class, but F for deep route, D for release. You don't like that. And, nothing jumps off the charts testing-wise, as he doesn't appear to be, an overpowering athlete, which you really want from a receiver. In the first round, you want them to have a complete skill set, be a top-tier athlete. If a guy's not Calvin Johnson or Jamar Chase, I really don't want him in the top 5 to top 10. So I don't think Markel Pierman, despite, the A for juke and A for ball carrier vision, A for spec catch, just not a complete receiver and not someone I really want to take all that high. And then there's Philip Lang, a lot of deficiencies in his game. You see D catching traffic, D catching, although A for deep route, B for release. You like that, with a very good 40-yard dash, 3-cone, and 20-yard shuttle. So very good speed, short area quickness, change of direction. But does that overcompensate for the D catching traffic, the D short route, F medium route, D catching? I just don't see that. He's going to be a dynamic player, and he might develop nicely, but with that, frail 5'8" frame, I don't know if he's someone you want that high either, which now brings us to Luke Day. I talked about him being maybe the most complete guy out of the top 3 at 6'2", 229, 21 years old, out of Alabama. A catching traffic, B catching, C release, D deep route. You don't like that, but Very good testing overall, I'd say. A 4.41 140. Very strong with 22 reps, which is second among wide receivers. Very good broad jump as well. Not the most nimble. Not going to beat you with his short area quickness, but overall good long speed, like the size. And you see a few A's there for catching traffic, spec catch, run blocking, which of course is an underrated aspect of a receiver's game. B for short route and catching. So someone who's going to move the chains there in the short yardage situation is not a burner, but I do like the balanced skill set. Around 1 to 2 talent grade. So he didn't grade as highly as Lang or Pearman, which I don't know if I really feel comfortable drafting any three of these guys early on. Michael Aiken, we talked about him. He had a poor draft story on him. F for catching. I don't think someone we're considering, which brings us now to Carlos Alvarez, who's down 25 on the board for whatever reason. He must have had a draft story on him that I forget at this point, being so long since we've reconvened this franchise. But he has A, catching traffic, A, catching, B, deep route, B, release, and tested very well in pretty much every category minus the 3-cone and 20-yard shuttle. He like a 4.42 40-yard dash, the most bench press reps of any wide receiver at 24, also the highest vertical jump at 40.5. And it's not like he's this big receiver who tested well. He also has good skills. A for run block, short route, spec catch, catching traffic, and catching. B release, so he gets off the line well. C for medium route, and he even has a B for deep route as well. So Carlos Alvarez, I don't know what the case was on him dropping so far down the draft board, but at 6'3", 233, with his testing and his skills, I think he's just super complete. And I don't know if I'm overthinking it or not, but it looks like he might be the guy we target, especially, considering he's under these guys like Pearman and Lang and Day. He's under them by about 20 spots on the board. And we do plan on trying to hold out for a receiver until the end of the first round. So maybe he's our guy with a round 1 talent grade. Looks like he's a slight step up over Luke Day, which brings us now into a few guys down the board a little bit who I do like. And this is Drew Collins, 6', 194 slot receiver out of Texas A&M. Projected round 3 to 4, but he comes back as a round 1 to 2 talent grade with A, catching traffic, B, catching. You don't even mind that F, deep route for, he's a slot receiver, so you don't really have to worry about that. D, release, which you wish was a little bit better, but you love the catching traits, the B, short route, the C, medium route. If that release was up a little bit, I think he might be up the board a good bit, but his physicals, he tested pretty well in the 40-yard dash and 3-cone, which I think are probably the most important skills, or at least testing traits for a slot receiver. But just based on that round 1 to 2 talent grade he got from our scouts, we're definitely going to be considering Drew Collins maybe late day 2, early day 3. And now Chance Rodriguez, a very, very polarizing prospect, 6', 191 out of Florida A&M, and he's kind of been linked to us all year. Was projected to us in the first round in a recent mock draft, but a day 3 talent. I don't know if that was very valid, but you still love the 40-yard dash, the fastest of any receiver at the combine at 4.31, and a very good 3-cone as well. The trait's not terrible for someone projected 3rd or 4th round, and I think he did have a draft story on him, which leads me to believe he might have pretty good development, maybe a star development there for a day 3 guy. There's also J.D. Brown, a deep threat out of Georgia, projected day 3. He comes back with a 2 to 3 round talent grade. And then someone I'm very, very intrigued by here, Eddie Matthews, 6'6", 209 out of Oklahoma State. The traits aren't really there, as you see a D for catching, deep route, short route, spec catch, all there at D. F for catching traffic, F for medium route. But we're not drafting him based on those attributes. We're drafting him, or we would be drafting him based on his testing. And at 6'6", this dude ran a 4.34 and was also 2nd in the 3-cone and 3rd in the 20-yard shuttle. That 3-cone is just absolutely absurd for a man his height. You rarely see that. So Eddie Matthews, someone I'm very intrigued by as a day 3 guy, does come back with a better talent grade though at round 3 to 4 talent grade. So Eddie Matthews, someone definitely to keep in the back of your mind as someone we take a flyer on just based on that athletic profile and that size. And then Joey Gay here, 6'2", 231 physical receiver out of Iowa, undrafted free agent, but comes back with a round 3 to 4 grade. So maybe someone we just throw a 7th round pick on, knowing that he's going to have decent overall compared to his draft status. So that's just a little look at the receiver class. I'm not sure what is going to happen on draft day, seeing as how we have the number 3 pick. Like I said, I wish there was just, like a Calvin Johnson or an AJ Green, Julio Jones in this year's class, but there just isn't. Although I think I am kind of talking us into maybe drafting Carlos Alvarez at the end of the first round. do like Drew Collins. Chance Rodriguez is someone who's intriguing. And of course, we just talked about Eddie Matthews as well. So I think it's pretty conceivable to think that we maybe draft 2, maybe even 3 receivers in this year's class as we really try to solve that position and get Marvin Harrison Jr.'s running mate. We addressed running back in free agency mainly because we just didn't scout this position much throughout the season. I think we were kind of hoping that Trey Benson would take another step in his development, but he just really didn't. So that being said, we didn't really scout any running backs, nor did we scout any quarterbacks, with our quarterback of the future, Lucas McDonald, leading the way. But there are 3 quarterbacks projected as top 5 guys. We'll see where they land come draft day, and we'll see if we are able to work a trade with the Dallas Cowboys as they look to snag one of these quarterbacks. But this is where I'm going to leave you, folks. Thank you so much for watching. I know it was a long time away, a long episode to get back into it, but very important to get through free agency, do our due diligence as we like to do on this channel, as we continue to try and build this Salt Lake City Snowhawks team, expansion team, into a winning football team. I'm very much looking forward to the draft episode next time with the 3rd overall pick, the 28th overall pick, and 9 draft picks in total. We're going to try to work the phones, work up and down the board, and really improve this team as we head into year 4. But as always, everybody, thank you so much for watching. It's been real, and be well, and I'll see you next time.